NLU's website has not been updated for the last more than 2 years. Okay. Still shows 6 projects, though I could able to get 11 now. Yeah. And publications, research also almost has increased multiple times. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. Right. So yeah, some of the known cases also I can see. Can you just go to the next slide? Right. So this picture depicts what is possible in terms of actually the my section. How to develop a proposal and then what should be the submission strategy. There is no actually uniform method for that. There are multiple dimensions with respect to that. I almost actually see 180 degree, of course picture is not depicting that. Still, 180 degree actually the divergent roads. You can have multiple permutation and combination with respect to the development of the research proposal and also the submission of the strategy. Now, before discussing about my personal experience, in fact, actually this session is not on the basis of actually some research which has been conducted, rather on the basis of my personal experience of those projects which I could able to get it over a bit of the time. Before that, let me also ask you, what is your personal experience? Right, so maybe some of you have applied for the projects, some of you might have got the projects, some of you might not have applied for the project. So let me know, so what is your success story, and maybe actually also, what are the bottlenecks which you have faced? Right, if you have not applied for the research project, why you have not applied? Of course, I can't ask from every one of you, because it's just a 1 hour plus session. If I ask that, I think probably it would be ending with that only. And Nachiket will tell me, I would not have asked you to come down here. I would have handled it here myself, rather than paying you the airfare and then whatever other things it may be. So maybe a couple of you, some 3-4 of you can actually tell me about your personal experience, about success, or maybe the bottlenecks which you have faced. Anyone who would like to volunteer? Yes, please. Please sit. Yeah, please sit. Please sit.
Good morning, sir. Actually, we are not from the college. We are not from the law background. We are from the College of Fisheries, University in India. So, very beginning of my journey, I had applied in SCRB 1, and in that regarding the parallel formation that. So it was very new in case of freshwater parallel forming. Marine is very popular, and because I don't had in that particular subject, I don't have any publications. And once I applied, that project was for the newcomers only. I don't remember the grant name exactly.
Correct, yeah. But, usually for the freshers there will be grant. Yeah. Having less than 3 years of experience or 5 years of experience, there will be grants available. Yes. Yeah.
And after that, the comment I had received, that was like, you have a lack of experience in the subject. Even though the project formation is good, but we are unable to proceed the project.
Okay.
So it was one experience, and then like institutional project is easier. So I handled one institutional project, and then from the NABARD, recently I'm running one project, a small one. Another project is from NABARD, but the thing is that this is like a small project. So how to go for like a bigger project?
Yeah.
So that we can achieve more.
Right.
This is from my side.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your experience. I'll try to put forward something, try to answer your actually certain queries also in the course of the discussion. Anyone else?
We were analyzing Jaipur in 2024. So we have applied for a project to the NHRC and ICCR also. But about access to clean water in Rajasthan, because there are a lot of fluoride content in the 2 districts of Rajasthan. But we don't get any comments why our proposal was rejected.
Yeah.
So
of course, funding agencies have the leverage of not responding or not giving any comment on that.
They never explain the
Explain the reasons. Yeah, rejected. That's it. Nothing else actually might also. Yeah.
So one point is that just.
Would you like to have something else to be shared?
So
yes, I'll come in.
Maybe due to that the faculty through which we have applied not experienced much.
Good point. I'll come to that. Yeah. So something which one need to keep in mind in terms of the research proposal. I think that's also one of the important points to include. Yes,
So
please.
justification of amount, distribution of amount
Amount
that
and
we are asking for.
Mm-hmm.
That is a minor project or a major
Major
project
project, yeah.
regarding the UGC grant.
Mm.
In that we have to justify for what amount we are asking for books or
Correct.
journals
Mhm.
or some software, right?
Mm.
That is very difficult.
Difficult.
That part is very
It
difficult.
is not difficult as long as actually you can sense the nerve of the funding agency. I'll come to that. Like, it's not that difficult at all. Initially, it might be, you might feel like that actually. So how to break it into the different the parts.
Yes, it's breaking of that.
No, it would not be difficult. I'll address it. I'll address it.
So I feel firstly in all these years, one of the bottlenecks probably is, in which you will be able to help us out. The different funding agencies have their mandate,
Correct.
right? As much as I have been able to understand that, where would they put in their money? Right? Which kind of projects? So probably one of the bottlenecks which I think most of the colleagues would face is, which I also sometimes face is, that we have some kind of conceptualization of a project in mind, but how to crystallize that into deliverables,
Yeah.
and deliverables which are action oriented in terms of giving some concrete result for a funding agency to see that a work was produced which is justifiable vis-a-vis the budget spent.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? So I think theoretically some of us know,
Yeah.
but वो
How exactly?
एक्शन में कैसे आएगा ग्राउंड जीरो पे, उससे निकल के क्या आएगा, what would you give back to the community or even to the funding agencies, I think a major problem.
Yeah. Anything else?
Another thing, being a new to this, writing research proposal, so we fail to visualize how much expenditure will go in
Different types and all this, yes.
So there are a lot of contingencies which may arise once you start doing a field survey or start doing the research.
No, that is why you have to keep always a buffer in the form of contingency. Right? Contingency should be used for the purpose of actually any other subheadings, whatever. You have to also clarify that. Below that, actually, when you are actually having a head of contingency, you should say that if there is any shortfall in any of the above head, it would be used, or even otherwise, actually, any other new expenditure is there that would be covered under contingency. 10% of actually the total amount is always permissible as contingency amount. Almost all projects will provide. Right? Yes, Mr. Ranjan.
I have different ways. Like all of what you said is about the governmental projects.
Projects, yeah.
So I have seen, apart from governmental projects, we also doing some consultation with some law firm. So recently I am part of an institutional project that is emergence AI.
Yeah.
And their demand.
Gamescraft also? Gamescraft? Gamescraft also?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's completely different challenge.
Correct.
And they are also working with us.
I understand, and I always say that you need to be really careful in taking those private findings. I'll come to that. As a part of
Funding
this
is
session.
actually very high, so
High, but they have their own ulterior motive, and it might not suit you in any circumstances. You're just actually advocating for them. For example, the great Gamescraft, they have actually funded huge projects for in different national universities. Now you know the situation, right? So whether actually all online gaming is permissible or not, right? There is a debate on it.
Institutional stamp is required.
Institutional?
Stamping is required. Some authority is getting it. Maybe some interest of private funding is also.
No, that is okay. You might also take up actually the private funding for individual project also. I'm not discouraging that. But what I'm going to say is that actually you have to find out whether you're going to compromise on your work ethics in terms of actually taking those projects. Right? If you are supposed to compromise, don't go by the amount. Right? So there is sufficient funding agencies which are available. Only thing is that you need to explore them. That's the thing which I would like to the point. I'll just try to address it in a few other parts of my segment. Anything else? Yeah.
I just want to, from my own experience, actually, when, for example, funding agencies even certain political fund equipment. What happened is, like, for example, of different headings, for example, transportation cost was 50,000, okay, accommodation cost 20,000, but sometimes it didn't fit actually, when actually explored the empirical study. So it doesn't fit in the specific cap. So I specifically face that problem that how to manage it. For example, transportation में मेरा पैसा बच गया, okay, but accommodation में मेरा ज़्यादा लग गया.
That's
but
why.
I'm not ready to accept that.
No, one thing is that when you are budgeting, you should be also be clear what are the the expenses which are going to be there for transportation as well as accommodation or maybe for actually field visits, different things actually, or even the researchers, etc. You have to actually map it properly. Of course, 100% accuracy is not possible for anyone, right? You might have some additional amount available in certain parts. Some funding agencies would say that, see, look, this is what is at my upper cap. Within that, if you want to make internal adjustment to the extent of maybe 10% or 20% is permissible. So that you have to mention in the budget towards the end itself that internal adjustments may kindly be allowed with subject to actually the total whatever budget it is actually, right? So if it is mentioned, they will be knowing that actually see at the time of approval itself, there may be a possibility of actually changing that. Another thing is the contingency, as I told already to him, right? If you have a contingency head, that also you can use for the purpose of actually the catering to wherever you are having the shortfall, right? So these are the ways in which you can actually try to address it, right? For example, my Ministry of Commerce project, I told them, right, because it involved a huge field study and the recent one, which it's just getting concluded. We were not very sure about actually the transportation and accommodation cost. How much it would come, because it all depends on actually the multiple interaction with the stakeholders, going to different states and actually collecting information from the state officers, etc. How many days would be required for that? We were also not very sure. That's why I mentioned in the budget itself towards then that we are not very sure about this. This is what is the rough calculation. Subject to the total budget, whatever is existing therein, we may be permitted to actually make the internal arrangement. They have approved it. Right, but the only thing is that you should make it convincing to the absolutely, absolutely. Right. Anything else? Okay. Right. So I think, yeah, I want to hear from someone who has never applied for a project and what is the bottleneck. That's the last thing which I would like to hear. Somebody who has not applied for the project and what are the bottlenecks which you have faced. I think most of you have applied and that's why you mentioned about actually what concerns you are having. Right. Anyone who has not applied and what are the bottlenecks? Please tell me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't applied yet, but I thought of applying. So, but the bottleneck what I find is before thinking of the project is on which stream or on which project it will be relevant to
The funding agency.
the funding agency.
Correct, correct. Okay. That should not prevent you from applying, right? Because if you are thinking about this, you will remain in this vicious circle, right? So, whom to apply, what is that actually interesting to the funding agency? No, it is more in terms of actually applying and trying it out, right? That's what you have to do. So, don't consider this as a bottleneck. This is something internal,
Yes.
and you have to sort it out, reverse it, right? Yeah, okay. Anyhow, so can you see the slide? So just to address you as well, right? Opportunities don't happen, you create them. Most of the funding agencies, right, they might not even mention in their website that they are funding some projects. They may have fund, right? Even let's say at the governmental level, you can find that actually the different government ministries might not even advertise on the website that they have got a research fund, right? Or even if they have mentioned something, there is a possibility that it is not aligning with your topic, your subject. As she was pointing out, actually she's having expertise in some domain, but not in another domain wherever actually they are asking for actually the proposal. Yes, so it might happen so that actually say they haven't mentioned the topic in which you are working, or the domain in which you are working. But that's not the end of the story. You can get multiple opportunities from these agencies only by virtue of some kind of an informal discussion, or by virtue of actually finding out what they are doing, maybe in terms of their work, etc. Right? Maybe even if you look into their website, what they have done, right? Where there is the possibility of actually say taking an opportunity for the research. You have to think and you have to develop that. Let me give you one simple example. More than a decade back, 2014 to be very precise, nobody thought in NUJS, right, in my institution, that we will be able to get a grant of 5 crores from the West Bengal state government. I'm telling about more than 11 years ago, right? 5 crores grant. Nobody thought that it is possible from West Bengal government. Right? About actually many other governments, I'm not the principal secretary of the state came for a section some program. Okay. So after the section, we were having a discussion in the vice chancellor's office. Right? So there was some kind of informal discussion. Somehow he said in the discussion in between that, okay, you don't have any problem in terms of funding. Because the state is providing the fund, etc. Vice Chancellor looked at me, and my expression was somewhere in between a smile and a laugh. So suddenly the principal secretary realized, what happened? What is that? He just asked actually. I'm always actually candid, cheated and knows me. Right? So I'm always upfront with respect to anything. I said, accept a promise from the state government, you should also be knowing me with this past experience. Right? I said, see, accept actually a promise to provide interest of the loan which NUTS has taken for the building and other infrastructure. Nothing else has come from the state government. Couple of years actually, yes, there were actually the interest which has been credited by the state government, but it was also stopped, it did not continue also, because the interest was not actually I said, then he said, is this the case? Yes, this is the reality. Then we will take care of it. Don't worry about that, we will do something, we will take care of this. Of course, he did something about that. He paid, and then also even the principal sum also actually paid. In the same conversation, he also asked, what else I can do? Correct? What else I can do? We were not ready for actually that. So we were not, I mean, it's all informal discussion, so we were not sure actually what to do. Suddenly something came to my mind. I said, say, you can think of having a research center in any place. Research center. He said, I've heard about research center in science, or they say different actually, they say inventions, etc. In law, what is the research center which you are proposing? Right? Well, in law, what are you actually proposing? Sorry?
Regulatory studies.
I said, see, my domain is international law. I have got actually background of international. I cannot ask you to establish a center in international law. Right? So state government is not going to sponsor a center in international law. But something which may be mutually beneficial to the state government and to the university. We can work it out. Right? Something about, say, governance. Something about regulatory studies, or maybe say public policy, etc. We can work it out, and we can have some kind of a sponsorship from the state. He said, okay, it's a good idea, but how much you would require for that? I just actually told, see, if you are establishing a center, at least there should be a state professor, there should be some the researchers working under him or her, right? Almost a budget of minimum 1 crore per year is required. And if you want to establish a regular permanent center, maybe interest of that much has to be generated. Minimum 10 crores is required. He said, 10 crores is out of question, so don't think about 10 crores. So this yearly budget you plan it and prepare a proposal and send it across. Just in an informal discussion, this is what has happened. Right? Yearly budget you prepare it, and then also actually the proposal, what you're going to do, what kind of research is going to be done in this center, and what is the structure of actually people who will be part of the center, etc. I took almost a week to do that, prepare actually a draft proposal, prepare a budget. I prepared it for 5 years, right? With almost a crore each for each other year. So I prepared a budget, a detailed budget with actually what is the salary for the researchers, what is the chair professors, the salary, and then actually so what kind of a field visit need to be done, how much may be required for that, all these budgetary details I prepared it. It was a draft was prepared and it was sent by the vice chancellor. After that also we were not hopeful because see, usually they will come and they will make promises and then they will go, that's it, right? So when this kind of discussions happen, bureaucrats will always actually make promises, sweet promises, and then they will lie. So PC was asking me, is this workable? He was asking. I said, let's try for it. There is nothing wrong in trying for it. I put in my 1 week's time for that. So let it be sent across. Let's see what happens. Almost after 3 or maybe 4 months, I don't remember. It was a holiday or maybe a vacation in the middle of vacation. I got a call from the vice chancellor late evening. Me and my wife were actually shopping somewhere, and so got a call. He was taking my name 5-6 times in an anxious way. He was taking my name. Something he was saying like, I wasn't sure what happened to him. Is he in trouble or something? I said, what happened, sir? Are you keeping well? I said, I'm really keeping well. We got actually the project. He was so excited. Soon after the call from the ministry, he called me to tell me that it has been accepted. So it was such a kind of a scenario wherein we got a project, right? We got a center from the state government sponsorship. Believe it or not, it is still continuing. It's still continuing, right? And we are getting annual the budget for it. Even though it was initially for 5 years, it was continued, right? So it is continuing, and then we are having so many people working in the center. So this is how it works. It is nowhere my domain, right? I'm an international person, to be very precise. I work in space law. Something which is very close to my heart is the space law. Right? Aviation, trade are ancillary to it. That's what I can detect. Right? So this is how the opportunities are created. Right? Another example which I can give, Department of Atomic Energy sponsored us for 2 years for the training program. Nobody would have thought that the Department of Atomic Energy is going to sponsor a law university for the training program. It happened coincidentally because the legal advisor of the Department of Atomic Energy came to NUJS since his son was studying the postgraduate diploma in aviation and space law. We were offering the aviation and space law postgraduate diploma. So he came accompanying his son for the examination to tell me that how good the course was. He came to Kolkata for telling that. In the informal discussion, he said, look, say if you want to do something in the field of nuclear law, tell me. So we will have a training program. So is it working? This is how actually I got the funding for 2 years. Right? So therefore, don't think that actually the opportunities are always open, available in the public domain. You won't be able to actually get it in the internet as such when the research fundings are available. Of course, there are multiple such kind of funding opportunities available, I agree. But apart from that, there are also other opportunities which you need to create. Right? And an informal discussion with stakeholders would definitely help in terms of it. Next slide, please. I always say that what is most important is to sense the nerve of the funding agency. Sometimes you feel, I'll give a fantastic proposal, right? But UGC rejected it. As she has pointed out, I gave a fantastic proposal to a public funding agency, but they rejected it, right? It might be on the basis of your qualification, that's one thing. Second, even if your research proposal is very good, it might not be something which is in tune with their requirement. Right? So don't go by actually what catches to you in terms of the research project. What catches to you, you can actually take it up for your PhD thesis. If you find that actually, okay, this is a very interesting area, then I can do the research, okay, take it for a PhD thesis, fine. But the funding agency is not going by that. You would go by something which would be helpful to them. So you have to sense that. Sense that. Next slide. In this regard, let me tell you about actually the 3 different kind of funding opportunities and what you need to sense from them. Right? I have given some of the examples. Please keep in mind actually these are only the illustrations. That there are multiple other funding agencies, and predominantly they are actually say I have mentioned about law because I did not know that this FDP is for all. Right? So only after coming down here I got to know that actually it is for others also, right? So having other backgrounds as well. So therefore, I have just enlisted only those funding agencies, or only limited, not all of them actually, few of them, which are providing opportunities for the legal research or interdisciplinary research. Like say, international funding agencies, if you are applying, you cannot apply on a project which is with respect to a regional aspect. Say, Tripura, something is happening, and you would like to actually say research on that. If you send it across to some international agencies, it's happening in one small region, right? They will not get you funding. So your project in those circumstances should be either something of a global issue, some issues regarding environment, some issues regarding the conservation of other resources, fisheries, or anything else. You might be having a topic, trade law issues, whatever. So it should be more in terms of either global or at least transnational. There's a difference between global and transnational. Can anyone tell me? What is that? Global and transnational. How do you define this?
Universal, where transnational is occurring between the two nations.
Between the two nations, they not be two. Few, right? It may be few. Transnational aspects, right? It may be in a particular, say, continent. It might be actually say global south is always global north, whatever other things it may be.
Asian countries.
Asian countries, yes, possible, yeah. Or any other regional trading arrangements countries, fine, right? So you have to take a topic which may make sense in terms of either global approach or at least a transnational approach. Transnational approach, right? That is something which is more important. Or nowadays, even the QUAIL, third world approach to the international law, right? From the third world perspective, you can also find it out. Or gender-based aspects, right? So in that sense, actually, if you are developing your proposal, there is a greater chance of accepting those proposals by the international funding agencies, right? Maybe United Nations focusing predominantly on the international law. And nowadays, since they are having actually multiple branches, right? So there is a possibility of getting opportunities in all of them. Child rights, human rights, women's rights, whatever, right? So almost everything actually is covered within the ambit of that. So public international law related, any of those issues might be actually proposed with those agencies. World Bank or WTO, there are a lot of other funding opportunities available, especially in the financial as well as maybe the trade sectors, right? You can think in terms of exploring that. Unidruva, I think we mentioned about it's Unidruva, because it's a French term, pronounced as Druva. Unidruva is an international body which is functioning in terms of unification of private laws. Different countries are having different private laws, right? For example, say issues in terms of financing. What is the law in financing with respect to India is different from what is there in Singapore, what is there in actually say African countries or maybe Canada in different other countries, right? Law related to the contracts, they're all private things, right? Law related to actually say many other private aspects, they're all different in different countries. Yeah, family law is difficult to unify, right? Family law, yes, gets different to prove, but unifying that is not that easy. But anyhow, more other areas are there, most other areas are going to happen. Right. In those areas, Unidruva is attempting to harmonize the laws. For example, financing. If you have one system in India, you have another system in Canada, another in Japan, another in some other country. In case of a transnational financing, which law are you going to follow? Which law are you going to follow? So that's the biggest problem. So that's why Unidruva is sponsoring those kind of projects wherein there is a harmonization. Harmonization of the law, regulatory aspects, public policy, etc. That is what is being sponsored by that. So you can think of getting some kind of other opportunities that in the Unidruva. Unidruva, I think, I don't know, since I am the Indian correspondent, whatever communication comes to me, I send it across to all the national universities. It must have reached your mail or maybe VC's file, I don't know. Not yours, maybe the VC's are there, yeah. All the national school VCs are there, registrar, I'm not very sure. Yeah. Right. So Unidruva's opportunities come regularly on an annual basis. Even otherwise, also you can log on to the Unidruva website, right? Find out what are the opportunities available there. Even for students also, there are research opportunities, and they pay well. They pay well, right? It's in terms of euros, so they pay very well. American Society of International Law, American Bar Association, European Society of International Law, European Research Council, all of them sponsor different research. Don't be under the impression that these research opportunities are available only to Americans and Europeans. Of course, 90% of their funding goes to them, I agree. But the remaining 10%, they have to balance between the developed and developing countries. At least for that particular purpose, they will give it to the developing countries. Right? They will give it to the developing countries. So Global South gets this at least 10%, and that 10% is huge amount. Right? Their funding is quite huge. So therefore, you can also explore these opportunities, whatever are available in the American Society as well as European Society. Open Society Foundations has got the unit in India. There are opportunities. Max Planck Institute grants, Indo-Swiss Joint Research Program, Indo-Hungarian Fellowship, right? You have Australia-Indo Fellowship also. Australia-India Research, Joint Research is also there. So, and recently I got that actually, so it's going to start soon after my Minister of Commerce project. Then you have the DAG research, the grants, Germany is the one. Human rights and environmental law agencies. There are multiple human rights and environmental law agencies working at a global level who are also actually interested in sponsoring different research projects. You can try to explore them as well. And human rights and environment has got connection with almost every aspect, not confined only to law. Agriculture, or you said fisheries, right? Yes, conservation, fisheries conservation do come within the ambit of environmental law aspects. Anyone working in the mining, anyone working in actually the petroleum or anything else would be connected. Human rights, labor rights connection with respect to that. Anyone can try to develop the proposal and get the grants from these kind of other international agencies. Right? So, that's about the international funding.
Sir, if I'm not wrong,
Yeah.
the institution would require FCRA, right?
FCRA is a mandatory requirement. Yeah, that's something which you need to keep in mind. Whenever the foreign contribution is there with respect to any project, you need the FCRA certificate.
But in that case, would these projects be applied individually without the institutional affiliation? Then I don't know.
The FCRA requirement is only for the agencies,
Yeah.
the institutions. If it is an individual project, that's the possibility of actually having it directly. But again, the issue is that the tax, you have to be very clear about that. So whatever the tax amount is that has to be paid, the GST.
But generally, what's the trend? I mean, for these foreign institutions, the individuals are able to pitch for a project, they get it, or it's rather more feasible and they get it through the institutional.
The cases through the institutional affiliations. But there are certain NGOs which are working in the international level who would offer the individual level projects. So, but predominantly institutional affiliation would be required for most of these funding.
Because we are just 2 years old in the university,
Yeah.
but we have started the process for FCRA for us. Because we also don't have 12 in ATG, so we have started for all three together.
Okay.
Because, going
It
back.
will take definitely some time to
Yeah.
do that, right?
Yeah, and another thought I had that,
I
for
don't
example,
expect Tripura to be this hot. I saw actually the temperature online and it was showing lesser than Kolkata. We came with all the. Kolkata is colder than this actually. Online I saw the temperature is less than that. So I came with all preparations. But
another thought just, for example, especially in case of the international funding agencies, some of them may, I think you can help us understand better. We may have to be slightly careful, given the who is on the board and how the governments react. For example, I don't know, how would the German political foundation, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, right, is considered to be either apolitical as an organization with regard to funding, because given the changing dynamics of every ruling party in every country.
Correct.
So sometimes that may probably be an issue.
no, see, in terms of the public funding agencies, I don't find any kind of difficulty, especially because of the reason that even if there's a power change or the political considerations, etc., you are at the end of the day doing the research project. As long as actually you are confining to your research ethics and performing something, I don't find there is any problem. But if it's a private agency, yes, I do take this the point that you need to be really careful because they will also push their agenda along with actually the granting the project.
Right.
This is not just in the international funding, but also in the domestic funding. Right? That pushing of that agenda, you need to be really careful. You need to sense that and try to filter it out in terms of the accepting those kind of projects. Right. So, Indian research funding agencies, of course, most of you know about these research funding agencies. Public funding is available from UGC, ICSSR, CSIR. The Department of Justice has got actually the funding. I don't know how many of you are aware of this. There is action research for which the fund is available every year. Up to 25 lakhs it is available. Up to 25 lakhs. Right? So most, and also they grant at least say 15 to 20 projects every year. Almost every year you will get around 15 to 20 projects. I got it in the first term itself on the action research actually. So up to 25 lakhs you can get it. Then Ministry of Labour and Employment has got the grant rate. So anyone working in the labour law, employment laws, etc. can think in terms of applying. Ministry of External Affairs. Ministry of External Affairs until recently was granting only to those so-called think tanks, right? Any research or any kind of other consultancy, etc., etc. But of late, they are fed up with this because they have realized that these think tanks are thankless. And at the end of the day, they are there only for the purpose of this, nothing else, making money. They are all actually say working only for that. right? And they're trying to catch as much of project as possible and then give it to some kind of actually the say freshers, the researchers at very minimal the pay, and they will do something and they're actually dumped into the concerned ministries or the funding agencies. So precisely because of that reason, of late even the Ministry of External Affairs is searching for good research institutions amongst the law schools or maybe again amongst actually the say IITs, IIMs, etc. So precisely because of that reason, you can also actually explore these opportunities. And I know this because we have got a project very recently, and we are also trying to have a kind of a continued collaboration, probably a kind of a full-fledged center will be established in our institution. So that's how it is going on at present. We had an interaction very recently with the Joint Secretary, and he's really actually interested in developing it further. So there are opportunities available at the Ministry of External Affairs. Minister of Commerce, as I said, I am already doing the project, around 24 lakhs for 9 months they have given. So it's a very short term for the project, but still they have given 24 lakhs something around that. Minister of Health and Family Welfare, Department of Science and Technology. Science and Technology has, as all of us know, has a very close connection with law, right? So opportunities are available in the Department of Science and Technology also. Department of Consumer Affairs, National Legal Aid Fund and State Legal Aid Fund. There is a dedicated part in the National and State Legal Aid Fund with respect to the research. Nobody explores this, to be very precise. Right? Approach actually your state, maybe the legal aid center, try to gather from them the information about this research fund. What is the status of that? Just try to get that. You will be able to have some kind of research from there. National Commission for Women, Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. Of course, I've listed more of the law as I told already. So others do pardon me, I didn't know about actually your presence here. Competition Commission of India, ISRO. ISRO has actually the sponsorship for law. There is a project called Respond, right? RESPOND. That's not confined only to actually technology, it also extends to law and also some social sciences. Please go to the ISRO website, right? So go to that. State government, Judicial Academy, right? CRSTPP is the classic example, as I said. Nobody thought that much of funding is possible. Just approach the state government, right? Try to get an answer from them, right? So isn't that actually state governments are there for the purpose of promoting research, right? So obviously, in a one-to-one dialogue, you will be able to get something from them. Judicial Academy has got fund with respect to it. NLU has got actually multiple projects from the Judicial Academy as well. Even now, the national law universities. I don't know how many of you are from the law background here. Can you please raise your hand? Oh, most. All right. Do you know the funding with the national universities?
Yes, sir.
Which national universities funding?
NUJS, NLU Delhi,
Right.
two I know.
Yeah, these are the two major, to be very precise. NUJS and NLU Delhi are offering the research grants. Collaborative research funding is available in both the places. NUJS offers up to 20 lakhs as well, right? So you can have actually even the research grant at up to 20 lakhs. When NLU Delhi, 5 lakhs, 8 lakhs, I have seen actually, so there are opportunities available. Every year they call for application. Just keep a track of that, try to develop the proposal. And probably those who are from other disciplines also can think in terms of actually joining here because it's all collaborative research. All fundings are actually collaborative. So interdisciplinary is also considered. Please look into it and try to develop the proposal along with actually maybe a law university, some other law university. That's possible. Please. So this is all different. I mean, just examples. There are multiple other opportunities which are available there. So don't think that actually this is the end of the story, right? And this is something which I highlighted from law perspective. Imagine about actually your respective discipline, how much of other opportunities may be available in each of your disciplines. Right. Next slide, please. Private funding. I said something which you need to be really little bit careful about because there would be hidden agendas of the private agencies which might be pushed along with the research. So you have to be really careful. But some of these which I have highlighted, to my understanding, don't have such kind of a hidden agenda. Right? That's why I just enlisted them. Otherwise, there are hundreds of other agencies which can provide you the private sponsorship. But these are well reputed and they don't have actually any hidden agenda in terms of actually the getting it through you. Ford Foundation works extensively in the human rights, social justice. right? Human rights as well as social justice. So multiple opportunities are available. NUS as a center of the human rights also, right? Sponsored by the Ford Foundation. So like that, opportunities are available. Research is also possible in the Ford Foundation sponsorship. Tata Memorial Trust predominantly works in the health-related issues. Health-related issues. You can connect that to multiple areas, including law, right? Public health law, etc. So in terms of that, you will be able to actually get the sponsorship from the Tata Memorial Trust. I closely work with the doctors since I also have an interest in medical law. So that's why I know about the sponsorship available in the Tata Memorial Trust. Azim Premji Foundation. Professor Juridical Swami was there, actually the NLS current Vice Chancellor. He was there. He was telling the number of opportunities which are available there in also. Right? They are sponsoring multiple aspects with respect to the social causes. If you can connect any of your topic with a social cause, there's a possibility of getting it from Azim Premji the foundation. Right? So it might be in terms of actually say, I think NLU Delhi, if I'm not mistaken, has got a huge project, 4.8 crores. With respect to, I think 4.8 crores, if I'm not mistaken, you can also Google it. With respect to criminal law aspects and reaching to the stakeholders in terms of actually making them understand about actually the criminal law issues. So they have got huge funding from the Premji Foundation. Infosys has got certain tech-related research grants, but I'm saying tech-related, so it can also be law, technology and law-related aspects. NLS Bangalore has got a sponsorship from the Infosys, right? That's a huge fund, and also a center which is being run in the NLS Bangalore, right? And others have also got projects from the Infosys Foundation. So you can think in terms of connecting your areas with that of the technology aspects and make an application to the Infosys Foundation for the research grants. NGOs working in the field of environment, human rights, labor rights, women's rights, gender studies, so many are there. I just give few examples, that's it. Any topic or any domain can be connected with these things. Right? Whatever you are working on, right? Including say pure science or applied science, whatever it may be, you'll be able to connect it to them. Right? Even if your background is that, you'll still be able to connect it to them. So you can get opportunities from these places. Law firms, just he told me, right? And there are multiple opportunities available from different law firms. Different law firms. Because nowadays, law firms are looking forward for this collaboration due to two reasons. One, that they need a tag of association with some premium university. Just to show that, yeah, they have an association with the NLS Bangalore, NUS Kolkata, or maybe IIT Kharagpur, whatever it may be. They will put it in their website and we have an association with them, right? So that's something which they would try to encash upon at some point. Number two, most of the times, the law firms, whoever are joining, if you look into the statistics, after 2 years or 3 years, they will leave the law firms. As per my personal experience, at least every year, 10 to 12 people reach me for a letter of recommendation, right? Because they want to do the masters abroad, right? They would have actually been in some very well-known law firms, right? It will stop law firms. They would be earning minimum say 3 to 4 lakhs per month. That is actually the salary they were earning. Despite that, after 2 to 3 years, they get fed up with this employment. They will say that we would like to actually do the masters. But what is happening is that, of course, some people would actually go further. They will actually continue with the concerned law firm. They will become the partners, and once they become partners, they will not work. That's the other thing. That's the common thing, right? So once they become the partner, they will have actually share in the entire demo, and there is no incentive to work for them. Even 5% share is sufficient for their livelihood. So this is what is the practice. And on the other hand, those who are actually work for 2 years or 3 years, they are leaving. Right? They work for actually masters or something else. So who is there to work in the law firms? And when they are having the foreign the clients, right? So how they will be convinced with the work done by these freshers who are joining soon after their graduation. They will not be able to convince them. This is the reason why they are approaching actually different law schools, trying to also involve the faculty members in terms of the research. Whoever is actually working in those major domains, they're trying to actually approaching them, and they're also trying to actually come up with some kind of research works with the faculty members. So you can also encash these opportunities from the law firm. I should say that the interdisciplinary is the norm of the day at present. Right? Law school cannot think only in isolation, only the law-related projects. No, it should be actually say law clubbed with the science and technology, or with law and economics, right? So you can think in terms of such a collaboration. Anyone who is from economics background can think in terms of actually say associated with the law school, right? Or law and social sciences, different social sciences, law and public policy, right? Connections are there. Connections are there. So therefore, if you look into the current situation, almost all funding agencies do require interdisciplinary approach rather than a monistic approach. Right? They don't want actually only the research in law. Implications of law in different other sectors, technology, society, right? So in different spheres, how is it actually having an application? That is something which is more important. So think in terms of developing that interdisciplinary projects for the purpose of getting the better grants. Next slide, please. A few key points. First, academic qualifications. As I heard from her, the funding agency said the proposal is fantastic, but you're not experienced enough. You're not having requisite qualification, right? So that is something actually which you have always taken into consideration, and you need to move in your own domain, right? First of all, PhD is almost mandatory. That's something which if you are the principal investigator, if you are the primary person to do a research, PhD is mandatory. And also associate professor and professors are having a better chances. That obviously everyone knows about it. So that is why one of the things which you can think in terms of, even if it is you're not having PhD or you are not an associate professor or a professor, think in terms of actually getting associated with associate professor or a professor who works in that particular field and as a PhD, right? Put them as actually the major cost bearers and you get associated in the initial stages, of course, right? Subsequently, you are to take independent project, that's a different thing. But in the initial stages, just to get oriented to the research and to get some kind of facilities, get associated with someone else, right? And you need to try getting some kind of a project in the area where you are teaching, or you have actually a PhD, field experience, publications, right? If you want to actually say, for example, if you want to actually say apply for a research with respect to fisheries conservation, how many publications you are having? That becomes important. Have you written something in actually an established journal, right? Or whether your PhD thesis was on this area, right? These are the important things. So if it is not, if you are not having that particular background, and if you are still interested in working, I am not discouraging you, but what I am saying is that get associated with someone who has that background. You tell them, right? So I will develop a proposal, I will help you out in terms of all the whatever groundworks are there. You write the proposal, make the necessary changes, submit it. I will be there throughout to help you in terms of research. So in that sense, go ahead with actually the submission of the proposal. Then, identify the funding agencies' goals and priorities. I already told you about sensing the nerve of the funding agencies. You have to do that. A preliminary research in terms of that is the first step. Go to their website. What are they doing? Right? Okay, so what is that area where they have already worked? Or in which direction they are moving? Okay, so your proposal cannot be in the area which has already been worked on by them, number one. Number two, it should also be not in an area wherein they are not interested. You will say, oh, you did not work on this area. Therefore, please consider my proposal, which is of your interest, but it's of not their interest. Right? So you have to identify that and find out what could be an area of interest for them in the next research. Even an informal discussion, right? Speak to some stakeholders. Whoever is actually involved in the agency, speak to them. You'll be able to get an idea as to in what way they are progressing. And by virtue of that, you'll also be able to develop a proposal which will be more convincing. Right? Next, closely analyze the guidelines provided by the funding agency. Most of them, whoever is actually sponsoring the research could be having the proper guidelines itself. Right? And in accordance with that guidelines, only you prepare the proposal. Sometimes they clearly mention that your research statement should not be more than say 800 words, right? And you have so many things to say, and you write actually 5,000 words proposal. Makes no sense, because by looking at that itself, they will throw it into the dustbin. Because they want to know, because they don't have time to read your actually all background, introduction, everything, etc. They want actually precisely what you are going to do. Right? Some of them may ask you a detailed proposal. They will say also give the budgetary, the breakup, objective, etc., etc. Fine. In those cases, you have to do that. But some of them would say that you send us a letter of intent. What are you going to do? 800 words is the limit. Right? In 800 words, you are not supposed to beat around the bush. Say that actually, see, this is what is the background, this is what actually I have done earlier, this is what has happened, etc. Nothing. Simply saying that this is what is the crux of the issue. Right? This is how I am going to proceed forward. This is how I am going to actually do something which is a novel input. That's it. Right? So you have to follow the guidelines meticulously. When there's a word limit, follow that. When they're asking for only certain things, 2-3 aspects if they are mentioning, only that. Don't go by your research methodology for the PhD. Having 10 different things there. No. Right? That's not actually the PhD thesis which they are asking for. They're asking for something which is a deliverable for them. So, prepare the proposal in that sense. Clearly articulate the research domain, methodology, and expected outcomes. These are the 3 things which is always expected in the research proposal. I'm telling in general, okay? These are the 3 things which is always expected by any funding agency. First, outlining the domain. What are you covering in your research? Of course, you have to do a substantial preliminary research for this, right? Not just actually going through their website and finding out what they have worked already, what they have not worked, etc. But also in general, common parlance, what has been already worked upon? Is there a literature available? Is there any project which has been undertaken by IIT Kanpur? Is there any project which has been undertaken by Delhi, NLU Delhi? Who has worked on that? Research on it, right? And even in that area also, if you find something which has not been actually worked upon within that particular domain, you have to mention clearly in your proposal. Even though NLU Delhi has worked on this, IIT Kanpur has worked on this is that domain which has not been actually worked upon by both of them. Right? You have to make that very clear, convincing, and tell them that I have a scope for doing research in this particular area. A substantial research. Right? That's why you have to be very clear about the research domain. Methodology. Of course, I am not discouraging the doctrinal method, don't misunderstand me, but almost all the funding agencies at present are interested in empirical studies, non-doctrinal method, right? Because see, desk work is actually can be done by anyone, is the kind of an impression at present, right? Again, affiliate that I am not actually discrediting it. That is actually a possibility of having a novel research even in the desk work. Doctoral research can also be very novel. But most of these funding agencies are thinking in terms of actually the practical significance in the society. And unless you consult with those stakeholders, maybe in society or maybe in employment, wherever it may be, unless you consult with them, the funding agency will not be convinced with your research. How are you coming to the conclusion? How are you recommending for something without consultation with the funding, without consultation with the stakeholders? That will be the first thing they will be asking. That's why I would always prefer you to go for a non-doctrinal research, clearly mentioning how are you implementing your non-doctrinal research. Because the chances are more of getting approved by the funding agencies. If you are going by the, for example, sampling method, right? If your study is a pan-India study, right? You can't actually approach every state, right? You won't be able to actually say collect sample from every state. It's impossible. Unless and until you have a 5 year or 8 years project, which never happens. Usually 2 years maximum or 3 years. That's it. So therefore, you will not be able to study from each state. So you have to be very careful in picking your sample. It should be showing geographical distribution, north, south, east, west, center, wherever actually. So geographical distribution you have to do that. And number of samples whom are you actually consulting should also be proportionate to that of the entire population or the entire stakeholders. To be very precise, I think I will use the term stakeholders because stakeholders might be different. If you are doing a project on medical negligence for that matter, right? So you have patients as the stakeholders, you you have doctors as the patients, you have actually the hospital authorities as the stakeholders, right? And then consumer forum. Consumer forum, people who are actually there in the consumer commission, etc. So they are the stakeholders. So there are different stakeholders available there. Your sample should reflect that that number is adequate enough to represent the whole sex action, right? It is not that actually say you just actually take the say 0.1% of actually the stakeholders into consideration. It cannot happen like that, right? So it should be a representative of that particular class. So when you are preparing the research methodology, you should be very careful and you should be mentioning these things in the methodology. What are your stakeholders? Right? These are the different categories of the stakeholders. This is what is the number of population in each of the stakeholders. And I am taking this many as the samples. Right? Geographical distribution also justifying that. Right? This is the area because see, these are the 5 states wherein actually the say crime rate is high. You are doing something about the crime, some crime. Right? Crime rate is very high. What has to be done? Or alternatively, if you are trying to map something in general in the country with respect to some issue, general tendency, what is that? Then you have to pick those states wherein actually there is a high tendency and other states wherein there is a low tendency because both you have to map together to come to a conclusion in those cases. So depending on the project, you have to come up with this methodology which should be convincing to the agencies, the funding agencies. Expected outcome is the third layer. That is the deliverable. Deliverables. What are you delivering out of your project? I have seen in many cases, of course I have also vetted the proposals in the different levels, many cases mentioning that these are my research questions, my objective is used to answer these research questions. This is like something which we commonly see in the PhD proposal, right? 1, 2, 3 are my research questions, my objectives are answer first question, answer second question, answer third question. This is not required. Even research questions are not required for actually this kind of proposals. You need to have identification of the area, of the problem which is existing there. That's it. Not like your PhD thesis where you say that I will address this question. And your objective is not answering that only. Rather, to achieve something which is actually practically significant. How you are going to help the stakeholders out of your research? Right? You are collecting information from 5 different stakeholders. How they are useful for each stakeholders ultimately. Are you coming out with any regulation or a norm, rule, whatever you are going to frame? Come up with that. Are you going to establish a machinery or maybe a kind of a agency for the purpose of justice delivery out of your project? Mention those things. Those are the important things in the expected outcomes. Right? And these things should be in tune with the objective of the funding agencies. What actions they are performing. So, in terms of that, whether your deliverables are helping them, that's the most important thing for a successful project proposal. Project timeline and funding justifications. Somebody was telling about that. Timeline. Almost all the funding agencies would like to have your project finished as soon as possible. Please keep in mind, this is always actually a tendency. They would like to finish off the project in 6 months. Right? And they would like to pay as less as possible. That's always a tendency. But on the contrary note, as a researcher, you feel that actually more time is required. Or principal investigator, you think that more time is required. But please keep in mind that when they are thinking 6 months and you are saying 5 years, it's a mismatch. You have to logically think, okay, if I'm going to actually put in efforts and I'm going to have sufficient resources in terms of researchers, etc., right? How much of a time would be logically required? Is it I'm able to complete in 18 months, 2 years, right? You should be able to actually think properly, and everything has to be detailed out there, right? So, for example, field visit, 3 months, 6 months, whatever is required. Collection of data from the library, how much is required? Then analysis of actually the field data, how much time is required? Break it up like that. Try to convince the funding agency that it is not an issue of 6 months, rather it requires 2 years. Right? Every trimester or maybe every say quarterly, what are you going to do? Just mention that the project time. Every 3 months, this is what you're going to do. Or you might also self-fix the deliverables for each of them. 3 months, I am going to actually say collect the data from all the libraries in India with respect to this the topic, and we will submit a report after 3 months on the basis of all these things. First delivery. Second, after 6 months, we will actually collect how we prepare the questionnaires and then interview, etc. Right? Whatever we have collected, we will inform you. Then analysis next 3 months. Like that, so you have to break it up and then you have to convince the funding agency that it is a project worth of 2 years. Right? That's how you have to go forward. Funding justifications also. You said break up, there is a problem. Researchers, clear enough. Go for maybe the UGC scale, whatever is available, or if you have an institutional policy of giving more, apply. I just mentioned that institutional policy is 50,000 per month. Every researcher shall get 50,000. If it is with PhD, 75,000 or whatever. Right? So on that basis, actually clearly mentioned, this is what is required for 2 years, this much is actually for the researchers. Then field study for the travel and all. You have to calculate how many times you are going to actually visit those places and keep it actually say, I'm not saying actually say you have to boost it very high, thinking that there may be more money which is required, but keep it moderate. Keep it moderate. Accommodation, and then if you have a dissemination seminar, how much of money will be required for that? Or if you have an initial seminar in terms of collection of data, how much will be required? Just break it down, right? And also a caveat that in case actually money is, there's a shortfall in any of the headings, we will adjust it from other headings. Try to do that number one. Number two, have contingency also. So this is how actually you can also provide funding justifications, right? And I would always say keep it moderate, not too high, and at the same point in time, actually don't do charity for them also. Right? It's not like actually say for a 2-year project, just claiming 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs, 5 lakhs, right? Thinking that I might not get otherwise. Doesn't work. If they don't want to give you, leave it. 25 lakhs is minimum for 2 years, not less than that. Like that, actually, you have to be very clear. Right? Yeah. Last slide. Okay, so few final considerations. Time is up, I know. Okay. It's very competitive, there is no doubt. Whatever I told till now might be very colorful to all of you, but at the same point in time, please keep in mind that it is not actually as easily available as such. Right? It's competitive. It's competitive. You might go for a trial and error method, right? So there is no reason why you should not apply. Don't be there for the confusion always whom to approach, it's not my domain, etc. No. Go for trial and error. Right? If you look into National Law School, the common cell has been constituted for that purpose only. Nachiketa also knows about that. The common cell is actually a kind of a cell wherein they have multiple researchers. They will always look into these opportunities wherever it is available and then develop a proposal. Send it across. They may get it, may not get it. Out of 100 which they have applied, even if 10 is good, fine. That's enough. Right? I have a different approach, but I don't go by that. That's a different issue. I take. But maybe my approach was not correct. I'm not very sure because I go by targeted the thing. Up till now, I have applied for only 14 research projects. Out of that, I got 11. Right? And I'm only around more than 7 crores. So that's why I'm happy with that. I'm not going actually on a trial and error the basis. Okay. Whatever. Trial and error also work, right? And also, if you have actually an institutional support and you can have some researchers, you can ask them to develop the proposal, right? And in a way, it's also an incentive for them because their tenure will be continued. They will be working under those projects subsequently, and maybe they might also get more in the course of time. So therefore, you can think of further doing that. Informal discussion, as I already told you, would definitely help, right? Maybe whoever comes actually to your institution with respect to any sessions, talk, etc., informally discuss with them, right? Something would work out like CRSABB, which I told already in the earlier case. Avoid mismatch between timeline, workload, and budget. I said moderate, keep it moderate, but at the same point in time, not very low. However, even if you are claiming, say, for example, 18 months, 25 lakhs, 18 months, 25 lakhs, even if you are claiming that, make it very clear that actually this much of budget is required for you. Within 18 months, you are in a position to actually ensure that justice is done to the project and 25 lakhs is required for it. That much should be there in the proposal in a convincing manner. Explore the collaborative research proposal. Collaborative, I am saying not just in the same discipline, but also interdisciplinary in both of them. Because when you do this and send a proposal, the funding agencies, rejecting them outrightly, the chances are less. It is not a proposal coming from one institution. It's a proposal coming from 2 or 3 institutions. Maybe interdisciplinary, one say a top law school, another one top science university, right? And another say social science university, right? Or a department, which is very well known. So in those circumstances, the funding agency's chance of rejection is less. You have to think twice. Oh, this is a proposal which has been considered to be meaningful by 3 top universities. Can I outrightly reject it? That's the first question which comes into the mind of a funding agency, or even maybe I as an evaluator. In many circumstances, I have found that, right? When I am evaluating the proposal, when it is from multiple funding, multiple universities, and they are making sense in their own domain, right? So this is how actually we are justified to be part of that. Outrightly, we would not be able to reject it, right? And panel would also consist of people with different backgrounds. They will say that, oh, it makes sense to me, and I will say that from law perspective, this also makes sense. So that's how actually the proposal should get through. So I'm not saying that every collaborative proposal would be true, but I'm saying that the chances of getting the proposal approved is more once you go for collaborative thing. Right? But don't go for the collaboration with, I better not to say, some of the universities which might not be actually in that status, that could be a problem. That might be a problem because that might also result in outright rejection as well. That's a caveat as such. Last, institutional support. I know most of you are faculty members, but still I have a registrar sitting just in front. Institutional support is indispensable for any research. Not just in terms of actually say sending you a proposal, of course, the institution has to collaborate, help in terms of it, but also in terms of the administration of the entire project. As a principal investigator, nobody should be burdened with the work of keeping the records of everything, financial accounts, submitting actually to say how much has been spent on every monthly basis, right? Doing all these kind of donkey works. They should all be done by the administration. An account section should take care of everything. If a researcher is submitting a bill, it's the account section just to maintain it. It is account section just to actually say, of course, this is not difficult for them at present. With actually the computers and all available in Excel sheet, they can easily maintain it. So this is what actually the researcher has claimed after the field visit. This is what, in which category it comes in. They can enter that in itself. There is no requirement of a principal investigator doing this. Towards the end of the year, struggling for actually the utilization certificate, right? Approval from the finance section. This is something undone. Because if this is the case, where is the time for the principal investigator to focus on the research? Administration will always try to compete. They will try to shift the burden, say that, oh, principal investigator is there, he or she may be getting some honorarium also. Why should we do it? Right? If there is a requirement, you also earmark something for the administrative or the staff. You can also mention that, okay, 20,000, 25,000 per year would be for the administrative staff. Let them maintain the record. It can be part of the project fund itself. No need of a university for the paying them. Right? It can be part of the project fund itself. Some of the agencies do allow that actually. Even the administrative support part can also be there as the part of the funding. So that has to be taken care of at the institutional level, and the principal investigator should not be burdened with these kind of works. So these are the few things which I wanted to share with all of you. Yeah, the last slide. Thank you so much. Thank you.